Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I've chatted with Rob, and I'm like, why don't I actually just start the podcast?
Let's just start it.
Because it's going to be a chat anyway.
Let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Grabowski
thank you
is sitting
so much.
across from me. What a beautiful man.
Jonny Nelson, a goddamn delight to see you.
What a delight. This guy and I go way back in the improv world here in Chicago.
This is true.
Have done a ton of shows together at multiple theaters.
This is very true.
And I haven't seen you in a while, so this is really a delight to catch up.
When did I see you last?
I think a little backyard distant
a little
shindig.
Jim Boy hang?
Yeah, a few months ago. So Rob Grabowski was on. I'm like trying to give you a proper introduction.
Do it. No, I'm ruining it. I'm just talking.
Rob Grabowski was on multiple Herald teams with me over at IO Theater. Mm-hmm. So he's performed at IO for years. Oh. He was part of the Herald Commish over there. Which means we got to talk about it.
We can talk about it.
He's super excited to talk about it.
Absolutely talk about it.
And we performed together at Comedy Sports here in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And you've performed for Second City on cruise ships and in what they call theatricals.
A theatrical.
Which yours was a Hallmark Christmas theatrical.
It was called Deck the Hallmark.
I'm very upset it wasn't in it just because it was based on Christmas.
Johnny, you should have been
alone.
in it. Yeah, I don't know why. I should have pushed for you. I'm sorry.
Anything Christmas related, I'm in.
There are two cast members I could have gotten rid of them, and we could have brought Johnny in.
Also, you do a fair amount of theater.
I try
as well.
to. Yeah, I try to. I've worked with. I hate my credits, but I've worked with like Victory Gardens and the New Colony Theater and so many others that are now gone. Like I occasionally will update my resume and I'm like, well, this theater doesn't exist anymore. Because like they're storefronts. Sometimes like a Herald team, a storefront theater will be created and it'll have a good run. And sometimes that run will go longer than you thought. And sometimes it's like 3 years max.
Also, as this introduction keeps going on and
please.
Also the host of multiple
just two
podcasts, but have had multiple, right? You've gotten around in the podcast world.
So I had the remake with our friend Josiah Jenkins.
Yeah,
and then
the remake was a podcast where a guest came in. They talked about one of their favorite movies or a movie they hated, any movie that they wanted to potentially remake. They would pitch a remake.
It was super duper fun.
It was a blast.
I did that. We did that for like 120 episodes. And then currently I'm a co-host of Popping Bottles. We have to get you on, Johnny.
What a delight.
With Josh Segovia. It's a comedic podcast about your favorite beverage. Mm-hmm. And then also Talking Shop with James Dugan, where we sit down with a member of the Chicago community and talk about life, the universe, and everything in between.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's also called Improv Nerd.
I like to think we're a little better.
Oh, smack talk! You need to have Jimmy on your podcast.
I don't know
Crane.
Jimmy. I've met him once. I've never taken any of his classes.
Reach out to him. You should have a little head-to-head competition.
Why not? I'll take him down.
His.
Knock the glasses off. I got an advantage already.
This is already going to get me into one thing that I really love and appreciate about Rob. Is in the improv community, there's a lot of like, yes, and maybe you've heard of this. And there's a lot of like, yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, that was great. And Rob can be at times a very lovely voice of like, that was hot shit. Or that was garbage. And I feel like there's always a happy balance of being, too negative or too positive. But sometimes I find you're a lovely other side of the coin.
Thank you. I'll take this as a compliment.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong, especially when you're starting out, to be like, every show has to be good. Or like, not every show has to be good, but like, you want to try to find the good out of every show and really push it positive. And I feel like that was, for a long time, still, I still want to say even before COVID shut everything down, that was still a very moving forward force. Mm-hmm. I think that's important, but I think it's also more beneficial if you can call out. It's like, hey, that was bad. What can we learn from it?
Yeah.
Great. Let us never speak of it. Like I don't want to ever
Let's never speak of
again.
that
Because you
show
don't want to
again.
you don't want to get too bogged down by
Right.
a bad show. Like that took me a while to learn of like, great, if you had a bad show, bad performance, bad anything, grumble about it for about maybe a half hour, then you're done. Because otherwise you're just going to sit with you for far too long. You can't have that. It's not good for you.
You can't.
No.
But it is also like it's nice when there's a voice in the room sometimes to be like, wait a second. Wait a second. Not everything's like wonderful all the time.
Yeah.
But it's a balanced thing. And I think
Absolutely.
even in the improv community at large, like we're having a reckoning of like, oh, like there's things we needed to speak up about in our community.
Absolutely.
And like we need that voice that doesn't go with the flow.
Yeah. You need someone, I don't want to say I do it constantly, but other people do it as well. But on the flip side, Johnny, it's always good to have your absolute huge positivity. I think it's great. Honestly.
It's so fake,
And you
Rob.
need,
It's so...
fake or not, people buy it. People are buying, they sip it up like sweet tea. But what am I trying to say here? You need both sides.
You need both.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
ideally, we should all be able to do both.
Yes,
but
it
some
does
of us
take-
have a proclivity toward one or the other.
For sure. And sometimes it just takes time to figure it out. Like,
I will say this. So when Rob and I first met, we were on a really shitty improv team. Should we not say names? Let's not say names.
Let's not say names. But I feel like there was a year where I saw you 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah,
which was great.
And I remember that version of you, Rob, at that point in your life being a little rough.
Sure, that's fair.
And I saw you pull out of that eventually.
Oh,
where
good.
I was like, oh, Rob seems happier now. But I would say that maybe this is true for anybody in the arts.
Yeah.
Is like you hit these like highs and lows, and probably like the longer you're in it, the more you kind of can be even keel about it all.
Absolutely, yeah.
But man, like it feels like when things are bad, they're bad, or when you're not getting the thing you want, it's awful, so crushing.
It's so hard. There was an interview I was listening to with, do you know the actor Ken Marino?
I don't know most people.
He was on. That's fair. That's fair. He was on the sketch show The State, if you remember them from MTV. He's one of those character actors you would probably recognize him.
Okay.
Listeners probably know him as well. But he had some interview where he was saying he's like, I become very even keel with things, because like when he was younger he would go out for audition, if he didn't get it he'd be sad for days. And now when if he got it, he'd be happy, but that was the only thing that made him happy. He's now like, regardless of whatever, if like he's like, if my agent calls, they're like, Ken, I'm sorry you didn't get it, he'd go, okay, cool. And he's like, Ken, congratulations, you got that sitcom. He's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, that's what I need to do. And I feel like it's hindered me a little bit in the sense of like, of like, even if it's super good news, I just am like, okay, cool. And I seem like I don't care. I do, but like it's just that even keelness.
Yeah, there has to be a,
because I didn't like Super Grumpy Rob. I don't think I did not like him.
but there's there's definitely an easy place to for a lot of us to fall into an angstiness about this work.
Oh, for sure.
And I think probably true for any avenue of like the arts where the footsteps forward are very uncertain or clear.
Yes.
And it never feels good to go there, to live in your head in that world, to like invite those conversations with other people.
Yeah.
You never walk away feeling better for it.
It's jealousy's a evil thing, man.
Whether it's in the frame of like jealousy or whether it's just like, oh, poor me, I didn't get this thing I want.
Absolutely.
Or this angst of like, I want something more. It's
Yeah.
It's never helpful or useful.
No. And I feel like it's something that a lot of people don't learn till they get a little older.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's really funny. I I literally stopped myself yesterday. I posted on Facebook just like, hey, like what are people in Chicago's like opinions about like what they want to do like long term, like staying in Chicago, blah blah blah, because of the theater scene. And I was like, wait. This is actually a question, is a version of me trying to entertain that angst of like
sure.
nothing certain.
Yep.
yeah, nothing's certain because there's a pandemic, but then nothing was certain before.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And we kind of all know the answer that, guess what? Nothing is still certain. And I was like, it was up for 20 minutes and then I deleted it. I was like, don't be that Johnny. Don't be that guy.
Have you been thinking about moving?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Do you feel like there's this feeling for a lot of us in Chicago where it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, I gotta get out.
I do, and sometimes I feel like it's outside forces telling me to do this, and then it's my defiantness of like, no, I'll figure out when I want to go. But I also don't. I don't know. I don't know where I would go. I think that's the big thing. That's like, if I make a move, I don't know where to go. I don't have enough money for either of the coasts. And right now, there's no point to move out to the coast.
There's probably no point to move to any major city for
a bit.
Yeah.
And like John, I'm going to give you a secret. I'm not rich, so I can't. Like I would have to start kind of anew again.
Yep.
I'm older than I was.
You're older than you were.
I was,
Which is so true for everybody.
So true for everybody. It's like, yeah, I don't want to live in like a shitty apartment with like 4 dudes again.
Yeah.
I just want to do that. So it's like there are all these like things. I'm like fear a little bit too of like I don't want to move again.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because like when COVID hit, when I didn't have a job, I was like, do I go back to Michigan? I don't know. I
have nightmares that I moved back to Michigan.
Sure.
It's a weird thing. But I was going to say this too, that my, I've been here for about 10 or so years, and I've had a nice personal reckoning with like, oh, what was driving me?
Yeah.
And like having a better, healthier balance. And I would say this, like, probably most people who come to comedy is because they love comedy and it's fun and it's silly, right?
Yeah.
But for a lot of us too, there's also this dynamic of like getting famous.
Yes,
Ooh, baby.
There's another step that maybe we can reach.
I need it. And I will say that oddly, I came to better terms and I think, or got a little healthier perspective on that when I came out of the closet.
Oh, wait, what?
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 That was my husband you just met.
I thought.
Surprise.
My God.
This podcast is all based around people coming on.
These gays are everywhere.
Yeah. I bring on a guest and I surprise them that I'm gay because they weren't picking up on it before.
I had no idea. I just thought those were fun kisses.
But I'll say this, that like I do think that somewhere in my head there was a little bit of like a safety net of like I can like get the approval I need by like if I'm if I'm famous or like I succeed at the thing I'm doing, and then if people learn that I'm gay, like they will it'll take care of any bias they have against me, right? Because but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is a weird, gross mental place to go.
Yeah.
But I will say that like after coming out, which I came out late, 29, I came out to like everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm 36.
You look great.
Thank you so much. Am I 36? No, I'm 35. I'm 36. I'm 36.
What year were you born?
Time doesn't make sense. I'm 36.
Okay.
85.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you're okay, yeah.
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 Dude, I've asked what day of the week it was so many times this week.
I had to fill a form out earlier today, and it was like, what's your age? And I wrote 37. That's right? Really? Like, I had to think. I don't know. The job has been helping me keep track of like what is Monday through Friday again.
Good for you.
But like there was a period, like April is just a blur to me.
Yeah. I think that's the way it is for a lot of people.
April was just like, I thought I did something, but I've just been on this couch for 4 weeks.
I feel like I accomplished something.
So I'm glad to go back to. I'm glad coming out helped like get over that.
Well, it helped me adjust my perspective.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that gross thing that's kind of unrelated to the love of the work.
Yes.
That's more about like validation and ego.
Yes.
Got a little like refocused and like I got better acclimated to those like feelings.
Yeah.
Which I think, all of us who do something in the arts are like, we want to succeed and be successful.
Absolutely. But I've noticed, if I
There's
may
a
cut
healthy
you
and
off,
an unhealthy version of that. Right?
Yes, but also I feel here, and I've talked about this with other people, I feel in Chicago, we can't talk about it. We can't, I feel like none of us can say we want to be on Saturday Night Live. We want to be in TV. I just feel like, for some reason, like, and if you do talk about it, you're an asshole. But I'm like, no, I like forever I've always been like, I want to work. I want to get paid for what I do, be it on a stage, be it in commercials, be it in whatever. If I'm in movies and people like it and I'm in more movies, amazing. But if I'm not, but I'm still getting paid somehow, awesome. But like, as you get older, yeah, you have to like figure out these weird, because more roadblocks are being thrown up, be they good robots or bad robots. You got to deal with these robots, or else they're going to take over the world.
Which is just a metaphor for your own ego getting in the way as a robot.
It's the worst.
Yeah, there's definitely like I think it's okay to aim for things, but there's definitely, man, I think we all have the challenge of when we come to this work of like focusing on the joy of it and focusing on becoming better and not treating things as a means to an end, and people and relationships and theaters as a mean to an end.
Yeah. Don't trust institutions. Work with institutions, but do your own thing still. You can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Which is such it's inherent to this line of work that it's a head game of how you feel about yourself and where you fit, because it is very vague, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's the worst.
It's probably less vague of where you stand in a lot of other careers,
When I first started, I would go in on more auditions. I would tell my dad occasionally about it, and he'd be like, weeks later, he'd be like, "Hey, did you ever hear back from that car commercial?" And I'd be like, "Oh, no." He goes, "Well, why not?" And I go, "Because it's not their job." He's like, "Well, don't you get any feedback?" You go, "No." He's like, "Well, that's insane. They should give you feedback." I go, "Probably, but they don't, because that's the way the business is. They don't care. They're not looking. They're looking if you can do the job and if you'll be good at it. Then beyond, and what they're looking for, even more minute, is insane. You don't know what they want. You have no idea what you want.
They might not even know.
They don't know. They don't know."
Which I always say about audiences. They don't know what they want.
They don't know what they want.
So I already have to address when I saw Pop. I almost called you Pop. When I saw Rob get loud for a second, he very instinctually moved away from the microphone.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy's hosted a few podcasts.
I've worked a mic or two.
And I wanted to talk to you,
please,
a little bit about like what you've learned over the years, because you've logged over a couple hundred episodes.
Yeah.
What sort of things like you find correlations from and you pull from, whether it's improv or sketch or theater?
Oh, sure.
And what sort of things are like, whoa, I had to learn this all new.
Oh, okay.
Because I would say like anything, like if you go to stand up, right, and you're an improviser, there's some things you can pull, but not everything.
Absolutely.
and you do have to kind of learn in some ways.
Please cut out
to
that burp.
No, I'm gonna
keep it,
amp it up.
Great, perfect.
The more burps, the better. You do have to kind of learn to rebuild the wheel.
Yeah.
With maybe some of the spokes you had.
Oh,
I don't know.
You ride bikes.
I'm trying to make an analogy. So what are some things like you feel like that you've learned as you've hosted podcasting that you've like pulled from other things, and what are some things that haven't been the same for you?
So this is a good question. Okay. I think one of the first things that came to my mind is just with improv and acting stuff, I feel like any of us can talk to anybody. So like there have been like a few guests that maybe I don't know super well. Even I was doing like Josiah would bring a guest that maybe I don't know well, or
Josiah was his co-host on the remake
was the co-host of my first podcast.
Right.
Of just being able to make them feel comfortable so they can get to this place, because you don't want it to be. I never want it to be an interview on any of the shows I do. I want it to be like a fun conversation. And so doing that, it is like a scene a little bit where like you want to kind of you want to try to figure out what they're feeling, their energy back and forth. And then when you feel like they're getting comfortable, you hit record. You don't tell them you hit record. That's the key. Don't tell them when you turn everything on. Just go into it. And if they call it out, be like, yeah, we've been recording for like 20 minutes. Just keep going. It's fine. Something I didn't know how to edit. I'll tell you that. I didn't know how to edit audio. I didn't know how to put any of this together. I had to kind of learn that on the fly.
Which is something I was talking to Erin about this when she was on, that here in Chicago, we have to do everything, right?
Yes.
We have to we have to be the host. We have to edit. We have to be the camera guy, the lighting guy.
Everything.
Because we can't afford any other version of it.
Nope. We have to do. We have to do everything.
Yep.
So again, I go back to Remake because it was my first one. So when I was hosting with Josiah did a lot of the tech stuff, and then I would do like a lot of the booking and like social media posts and all that stuff. Then when Josiah moved, I took over everything. So there definitely was a good month of me figuring out how to do all this stuff. And then when I learned a little more, I got like better microphones. Now I feel like I can, with something that took me 4 hours, I can now get done in probably 90 minutes.
What an improved workflow.
It's beyond huge. But beyond, like, I'm trying to...
Have you learned some other things, like, as a host?
Oh.
That you're like, whether it's like you edit your podcast so you hear yourself and you listen to yourself and you're like, I'm going to steer clear of doing this sort of thing.
Yes.
I've already noticed how many times I don't listen.
Oh.
Like, I think I'm a pretty good listener, in general.
Yeah.
And I would say maybe I score higher than some.
Oh, sure.
But, like, I'll edit something. I'll be like, I didn't hear that person say something because I was thinking about my next question.
Yeah, you got to be in the moment, man.
You got to be in the moment.
I notice I clear my throat a lot, and so I try really hard to fight that back. I know I can ramble on too long. And it's also like, you have to know where to place your hands. I know, it's like weird little stuff. I really haven't thought of these. So that's why I feel like I'm on, like, I'm maybe I'll get back to you with when I like thought of, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but it does, anyone can start a podcast, much like anyone can do improv. Is it going to be good? I don't know. I don't know. Probably not. Hell, I do them, and I don't think my podcasts are good. That's a lie. I think they're very good.
They're good.
Please listen
check
to
them out.
them.
They're good. I'll tell you, they're good. I've listened to them.
But you have to try it, and you have to learn.
Because that's how you learn.
That's how you learn. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're going to find weird tics that you do, and you're like, oh, do I do that often? Oh, you know what does bother me when I have to, because I'll re-listen to the audio to edit stuff.
Yeah.
I hate my laugh. This little,
you have a great laugh.
but I do it too. I don't know. I think I do it too much.
Okay, so
here's this weird Seth Rogen like.
Here's an interesting perspective, and I've never known where I've fallen on this. I took a workshop, like a private workshop with an acting teacher in Chicago called Kurt Nabig. Do you know Kurt?
No.
Great dude and like very insightful.
Sure.
But he was like helping me work on like an audition or something.
Yeah.
And I was going to film it so I could like look at it and work on it later.
Yeah.
And he was like, I tell people not to film and watch themselves because as you watch yourself over and over, you'll start stripping away the nuance of your personality and your character that other people actually like and are okay with. But you're like, I don't like my laugh. Or like, I don't like it. So you start like honing out your personality and your charisma.
Yes.
Because you're your own hardest critic.
Any self-tape I've done, I try my hardest one take. Because if I watch it too much, I 100% agree with this guy. Because it's true. I especially early on, I would catch myself like I would do it and then rewatch it and be like, no, I did this. I did this little thing that no one else would notice, but I noticed. And then by like the 20th take, it's just nonsense. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
Yeah,
it's true.
Real.
It's one. So like now I will do. I soldier through it unless I mess up a line or there's a big flub. But I do my best to do 1-2 takes tops.
And you're talking about auditioning for commercials.
I'm talking about self-tapes, like auditions for commercials or movies or TV shows, anything like
where you're
like
now, like we didn't used to get to be in control of that
Yes.
process.
Yeah, no.
Right? But now since we're all self-taping from home.
But even before COVID, self-taping was a huge thing. I feel like I would self-tape. I feel like it was equal. I would self-tape and go into audition equally.
Okay.
But also for going to audition, you can only run that monologue or those lines so many times. And so it is that like, it's that fine line of like, you want to be prepared, but you don't want to be over-prepared because you're going to overdo what makes you unique and makes you put your own spin on that thing that maybe possibly a casting agent will be like, oh, that guy, let's bring them back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm completely split on this because like, I think I followed that, perspective once I got that from him. Like, cool, I'm going to be pretty like hard on myself about like not watching myself. And I don't know if I think there's utility in not watching yourself and being like, overanalyzing yourself. But I also do think there's a little utility in like seeing yourself occasionally.
And Johnny, here's the thing. I agree with you there too.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I really do.
Any hard stance is usually a wrong stance, right?
You need to know what you do because maybe you are doing something wrong in quotes.
Yeah.
It's like that's why directors are needed for certain things because you need an outside perspective to take a look in to be like, oh, when you two are doing the scene, you're blocking each other. Anything. It's just that.
And maybe it's the version of it that's the best version is like you record yourself and you watch yourself, but somebody else is giving you notes.
Yes.
Which a lot of like acting schools who do on camera work will do that. And that's real valuable because all of a sudden you're like, oh, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I do this awful thing.
I don't have COVID.
We don't know actually.
That's true. I get tested tomorrow. But lately I have a couple of friends I go back and forth with where they'll be like, hey, watch this. Let me know what you think. And then I'll send them stuff as well. Just to be like, yeah, take 3 is better. Because sometimes you need. That's good. You just need another outside eye.
Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about this other aspect of podcasting that I've been realizing happens too is I'll be talking to someone, and for everyone who doesn't know, I'm my 7th guest in, so I'm learning.
You're learning. You're doing great. I've been enjoying the show.
Oh, thank you. I'll turn it off and then hang out with that person for another hour, and we immediately start talking about things that we want to talk about. So I'm turning it off right now, Rob. Be at ease. I'm at ease.
I'm at ease.
What do you want to talk about, man?
Oh shit! You want to talk? What do you want to talk about?
But do you feel that happens?
Yes.
To you too?
Constantly. There is a period where, for Talking Shop, the one I do with James Dugan, I don't turn off the mic right away, even after. Yeah. So we have like an ending question. James and I don't prepare for the show. Like the most will be like, oh, we have this guest coming on. We'll probably talk about these 3 things, but we're not going to open with it. We're just going to kind of, maybe we'll steer the conversation one way or another.
Keep them in your pocket.
Yeah. But like, if it doesn't come up, it doesn't come up. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. But we have a final question, much like Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And then after that final question, if they still want to talk, we just let it go.
And can we step back too and say, in case we missed it, Talking Shop is usually improvisers and sketch comedians and people in the comedy world.
Correct. It's very Chicago centric, but we've had, when COVID hit, we were able to branch out to some ex-Chicago patriots who live in New York or LA and talk to them about not only their time in Chicago, but how they adjusted to moving to a new city. But it's been fun.
And also, like, people like it a lot.
I think so.
Like I've had students in my classes be like, good. I listen to this podcast called Talking Shop. I'm like, I know that guy. I'm like, that's great.
That makes me. I'm glad to hear that. That makes me happy.
If I was just, moving to Chicago 10 years ago, and there was a resource like that, I would have listened to the fuck out of.
Do you remember Poor Choices?
I never
Poor Choices.
Was it a podcast?
Yeah, it was a podcast. Yeah. Poor Choices by his name slipped in my mind, so I'm not gonna say it. Poor Choices. Poor Choices was a podcast that was out like right when I was like I think is like I was getting into like IO and really kind of diving in where they would the host would interview people of the community.
Yeah.
And it was super, be it like people who just started like around like with John Sabine or Jameson Webb, who maybe only had a few years under their belt before me, to current people on like the main stage at the time. And it was very interesting and such useful to be like, oh, this is how it just happened for you. And everyone's story is different.
Yes.
And that's why Dugan and I decided to kind of do this again, because like it is useful.
It's such a valuable resource.
To pull the curtain back a little bit.
It takes being in the comedy world like a good, 3 years here in Chicago to wrap your head around what it means to be here as a performer, what it means to like. It's very large and confusing when you first come here.
Oh, for
and
sure.
Any sort of extra resource that kind of like paints a picture for you or like lets you into someone else's personal story and experience on it is incredibly valuable for people who are just starting out.
And like everyone's path is different.
Is the exact same.
Oh, sorry, is the exact same path. If you
get on a Herald team.
If you do A, B, and C, you're gonna get D.
Go to the Alliance. Yeah. We are now going to reveal to you how to get on main stage and then segue that into SNL.
Yeah,
we didn't personally want to do those things.
No. I heard the path and I went hard pass.
Yeah. But the secret is
the secret's out there. Here it is. And then just put in some like static and be like, and that's how you do it.
Yeah. So I also want to talk to.
Tastes like watered down jelly beans.
Yeah. We're drinking.
This is what you have a
sparkling
sponsor?
Water. Nope, but we'll give them a free shout out. We're drinking Jelly Belly water.
It's not bad.
I'm drinking buttered popcorn.
I'm
not drinking buttered popcorn. It's pina colada.
I'm drinking very cherry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no.
Bit.
I did want to talk to you a little bit about one part of your improv journey that you always get such different takes on it, and it always sounds so wild to everybody. Yeah. But you went on a cruise ship and performed comedy for people on a cruise ship, which is gotta be a different world.
It is
in a different headspace.
It is wild. All right. So,
and how long did you do it?
I only did one cruise ship gig. That was about 5 months.
That's right.
And then while on my cruise ship gig, the Second City lost the contract with Norwegian. Oh. So it was ending. Because I would have done one more.
Oh, okay. You had the stamina for one more?
I had the stamina for one more. Because look, the money is great.
And it's
so what do you have particular? Just want me to tell you my journey to the cruise ship?
No. Okay. I want to hear about, because people come away from that thing either broken or a better person or a better performer, and I feel like it's such an intense experience for everybody. Yes. And it sounds to me that when people are on a cruise ship, they're psychos. It's not the performers necessarily, but the clientele and the people watching the shows. And it's such a weird hodgepodge of the U.S. and the world.
So when I was on, it was also a very unique time. A month before I went on, Donald Trump became president. And so
great timing.
It was perfect timing. So I was on, it was from...
And by the way, we both lean very conservative here, so nothing but admiration for that man.
Give him 8 more years.
As does most of the comedy world. Very conservative.
Very conservative. I don't want looting. No. Please cut that.
I can't.
You know what? I stand by what I say. We are a conservative talk show. So my contract was from December, like mid-December through the end of April. So like I also experienced like two of the biggest holidays we have, Christmas and New Year's, on a cruise ship.
Christmas being my favorite.
It's your favorite. Christmas is very weird on a cruise ship. So let's see, where can I begin? Was it hard and strange? Absolutely. Would I have done one more? I would have.
Well, because here's the thing too, is like, in some ways we're like, you're on vacation.
Absolutely.
In some ways, people are like, no, we're not.
Yeah.
But yes, we are.
So my contract, I had 10-day cruises the whole time. And the beginning of the cruise, for 3 days, I didn't have to do anything. And that's fun for me for the first 2 cruises. I like my downtime, but I like doing things. And so like that, just like it just kind of, it can drive you mad because you can sit there and just watch the ocean go by, and maybe it's been 5 hours, maybe it's been 5 minutes. You don't know.
So it's good for 2 weeks.
That's why cruises only should be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky. I had a good crew with me. My cast was super fun. We got along. I like the performing because I think people don't like it if they've only done IO. If all you know is a herald,
yes,
and then you go on a cruise ship, you're going to be a little lost.
I see.
Because of my experience doing short form, and at that time I've done short form regularly for about 4 years, maybe less, but about 3-4 years, I knew how to handle a not normal, like an average crowd.
Which is actually like you learned how to handle a more normal audience.
Yes.
More indicative of what a general audience would be. Whereas for those who may not know what like IO is, it's a training center for improv, but it's often a lot of the shows are attended by other improvisers and people who are already have bought into the.
And I'm not trying to shit on people who went through IO and all that stuff, but it is
it's great training.
It's absolutely
fantastic
great
training, and it's fun to perform there too.
It's a different mindset.
Yeah.
Where I always want, if I had known, I would tell if you don't like short form, don't do a ship, because that's all you're going to do. You do your sketch show, and you do 2 nights, maybe 2-3 nights of short form improv. And then maybe there's a couple like game shows the ship throws on that you're a part of.
All things which are the more marketable version of improv and comedy than just straight improv.
Yes.
Short form tends to be it's easier to market and make money on it.
If you're going to get paid for improv, it's going to be short form.
Or it's going to be improv that leads to generating sketch material.
Yes.
Right.
Correct. So yeah, audiences it was weird. Like we poured it out of New York, and so we would get we just get a mix of everybody. It's very strange being on a cruise ship. Yeah, it does. Like you definitely see madness 100% kicks in. There were nights where I would you're on a cruise ship traveling in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and I'd walk. So deck 8, I think, was where it was like the big open deck where you could walk around the entire ship outside. Okay. You would walk out in the middle of the night and you would see nothing.
Yeah.
Only stars, no islands, no other boats. You go, huh? And you walk around the other side and you see nothing but the black ocean. You're like, okay, anything, a monster could come up and take us down because we're in the middle of the ocean. We don't know what's down there.
Yeah.
But those nights like that were just like, I'm losing my mind. It's also, if I had gone when I was younger, I would have come back an alcoholic.
Your access to booze is like...
It's so cheap. Yeah. It's so easy.
It's the only thing probably to do.
Nothing else to do.
Yes.
And like it's the Second City contract with Norwegian, it was very nice. Like we didn't have to do a lot of stuff the other performers had to do. We had more freedom. But yeah, we just there was not a lot to do. That's why a lot of people would go and like work out and come back ripped.
Yeah, like in super good shape.
They work out 8 times a day.
There's always some sort of transformation. When someone came back from a cruise ship, there was always like this like weird adjustment phase of like, I feel like I might have missed out on things here.
Yeah,
I came back ripped. I would say this. I would say this. One of the things that I think is so cool about that opportunity.
Yeah.
Is this sounds silly, but the reps. Mm-hmm. I watched a lot of people come back from that and be better improvisers, because like you just finally reach this like critical mass of like how much you can perform, and you will. I mean, it doesn't matter where you started. The more opportunities you get to perform, the more it's going to feed back into helping you learn and be better at what you're doing.
Absolutely, the ship. I don't know if they'll ever come back in any form, but absolutely.
Yeah, cruise ships in general. Even,
I have no idea. I have no idea.
That whole industry might have just died. But
it was a very cool gig. I'm glad I did it. Yep. I wish I could have done at least one more. I think 2 would have been max. But because it is hard. Like people are like, oh, it's not. I'm like, it's not. It can't be that hard. You're on a cruise ship. It's vacation. It's different. Vacation. People who are on vacation on the cruise ship get to leave after a week. I have 15 more weeks of this.
Yeah. Which, okay, there's this interesting dynamic because a lot of the people who are in this comedy world,
yeah,
in some ways, we're like, I don't want a normal life or a normal job.
Yes.
And I'm going to value more what my everyday job is like in order to have potentially less like financial success and like healthcare and all this stuff. But even still in this world of like, I've chose to go this route rather than have a desk job.
Yeah.
You still find yourself sometimes like, oh, I'm doing a version of this I don't love.
Yes.
And then sometimes you find yourself doing a version of something in the comedy world that you might actually hate or it's time to leave.
Yes.
And that's
for sure.
That's kind of an interesting, mindset to play with of like, you came to this because it was fun. Mm-hmm. Sometimes certain aspects of what you're doing, whether it's a certain show or a certain gig, it's like...
There's a reason that it's show business.
Yep.
There's a business side to it. So if you do want to make this living, if you want to make this a living, be it acting or improv or comedy, whatever, you are going to have to do stuff you don't want to do.
Yep.
But you do it because it's A, like good exposure, B, maybe you can meet people, C, you're going to get a nice paycheck. Yes. And those nice paychecks don't always come around all the time. And when you can get one, take it.
And maybe ultimately at the end of the day, the version of what you're doing is closer to where you'll find happiness than like at a desk job, right?
You hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I find that too as just like someone who's like more or less made their living just teaching improv.
Oh, for sure.
It's like there's so much of it I love.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's certain setups, whether they be like workshops for certain schools that don't want to have you, or you go to a business thing and it's like a little tricky, that you're like, I would rather not be doing this.
Look, I'll.
But then you walk away sometimes and it's like, oh, this was awesome. Like I just got to expose people to the magic of make-believe.
That's also
wonderful.
The craziest thing is like there are some gigs that like, I don't want to do this. Why did I sign up for this? And then you go and you're like, that was actually, that was a lot of fun. But but that's a gamble too. You don't know. Some of them like, I play with comedy sports and some of those comedy sports gigs are hard. Some of them are super fun. Some of them end up being way better than I expected, but some are hard. But this is not just a comedy sports. And IO, when that used to be a thing, Second City, any of those places, some of these corporate gigs are going to be strange and weird.
I always found when I perform a comedy sports,
but you do them.
Yeah,
you do them.
I always found when performing comedy sports that the novelty of doing a gig outside of the building was always just more fun, regardless of how the crowd received it.
Yes. Well, part of the fun is that if you're lucky enough, you're all in a van.
You
get to go to Steak and Shake afterwards.
Or Taco Bell if you're real lucky.
Taco Bell if you're super duper lucky. And like that's the part of the fun of like if you get a good crew with you, it's like, oh, this is going to be a long day. This is going to be a solid day.
Yeah. And typically those gigs where you're traveling, you're being compensated better too. Mm-hmm, so it's like it always makes everything sweeter, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you can walk away and I had some friends. So when I first started doing improv in Michigan,
where'd you do improv in Michigan?
It was out of just a local schmokel theater.
Local schmokel?
Local schmokel. It's just a small theater.
Oh, yeah, the local schmokel.
But I had a hoot doing it.
Oh, sure.
And I loved the people I performed with. But, we would perform sometimes for, like, events and whatnot. And before my time being there, they were asked to perform at a friend's wedding. It was, they said, the worst setup ever to do improv. They ran out of the wedding when they were done. Nobody wanted them there. I did this gig once where I had to go teach. I was sent by a certain place to go teach improv or to go do an improv workshop for a woman's 80th birthday party. And we got there and she's like, okay, well, like do like they do at that theater and perform. And we're like, oh, no, we got hired to teach a workshop, which is two different things, right?
Very different.
I went there with Cynthia Banger? What's her last name? Yeah, Banger.
Right. No, I don't think she took Ryan's last name. I don't know. Who cares?
With Cynthia.
Yeah.
It was a room full of like 80-year-olds and like a few younger people, and they wanted us to perform, and we were there to teach, and they were eating meals, and we're like, get up in a circle and play this game. So people just started sitting down.
So you didn't adjust the plan at all?
No, then eventually we kind of like set it up so like they were performing for each other more.
Got it, okay.
But even that was very shortly lived. It was like we had like 2 hours to kill, and it needed to be like a 15-minute thing for what that group needed. So at some point, like I went over and talked to the host, and I was like, hey, I think people are ready to move on. Like, would you like to cut it short?
Yeah.
And thankfully they were in agreement.
Boy.
But man, you step into some of those things sometimes.
I always want to know, like, where did the miscommunication happen? Like, because
it may have happened in the client's own head.
Absolutely. Oh,
they just hear what they want to hear.
I feel like 90% of it is on the client, not to put them in.
Yeah. They're like, yeah. Like, we're gonna come and teach improv. Yeah. You're gonna do a show. You'll do a show.
One of the weirder ones, the theater I will not name. It was myself, Luis, and Jason Ronhe, all good people. We were supposed to go and entertain for like a woman's, I think maybe another 80th birthday party.
It was the same lady.
The same lady.
Just contacted a different theater.
No, so it was. So we show. It was like at some like nice steakhouse out in like the suburbs, and they just wanted like a half-hour show. We're like, okay, great. No, very casual, nothing crazy. But like we got there, and it was not what I thought. It was like a Chris Roof's just kind of normal steakhouse, and their little banquet room was no bigger than this room.
Ooh.
And
this is a small room.
This is a small room.
People listening.
And the table of that room took up most of the space.
Yeah.
So like we were like, all right, fuck it, here we go. The three of us did the quickest thing we could. We got the son who planned it up a lot to play with games and made fun of him a lot, and so they ate it up.
Smart move.
But like it was just like it wasn't a bad gig. It wasn't a good gig. It was just a weird. It's like, this is weird. Have you ever been yelled at by a client?
The first thing that came to mind is like performing for a bunch of elderly people and them all yelling the whole time. We can't hear you. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm talking real loud.
Yeah.
That's on you. There's nothing I can do at this point.
Yeah, I've been yelled at a client because it wasn't the show they were promised. And I was like, yes, it was. We ran over you looked at the contract, and I explained everything to you 5 times. Okay, whatever. Thanks. Again, it's in their head. Like, what were you expecting?
I was expecting, yeah.
I don't know.
And that's like, that's true to improv in general. It's like, you can only promise something up to a point.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it's made up. I would say what's so funny is like, whether it's, teaching improv or performing comedy improv or stand-up or whatever, the environment has to be curated and set up a way for it to work. Mm-hmm. And that's the side that like a client or like someone hiring you may have zero experience in.
For sure.
But it will make or break a show. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
God, yeah.
If you've ever tried to perform with a microphone in an open air environment, it will
never goes well.
It will never go well, right? If people are being served like food during your show.
Yeah, they care more about the food.
If people are too drunk during your show.
Absolutely.
If the lighting is too bright and they don't feel the ambiguity of I'm cloaked in darkness and it's safe to laugh.
Oh yeah.
If it's too hot.
There's so many There's so many elements that can make it go south.
So many things. Oh. And it's like when you go out and do a gig or you're getting like hired for a gig.
Yeah.
You can only make so many suggestions, and you're like, cool, you're gonna pay me? I'll be there.
Yeah, great. What is it? Okay, that's a nice paycheck. I will do that.
Yeah.
There's so much against you. Why do we do this?
But there's so many. Okay, but here's the caveat, right? It's not. Those aren't all the shows.
No, yeah, there are so many fun shows.
Yeah,
but those are the ones you talk about the most. Of like you wouldn't believe what I had to do.
And I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on us as performers in the improv world to just make it work.
Yes.
There's a sloppiness in the improv world of like, oh, you know what? You'll just improvise and figure it out.
Improv can be performed anywhere. You don't need a lot. It's like, no, you do need a few things.
Yes. And there's an excuse of like, oh, well, we'll just go with the flow and make it happen. It's like, well, administratively, we can still sort some things out ahead of time. Right?
Yeah.
But it becomes an easy excuse for maybe.
And what is it? Is it just like Chicago people are just like, it's like, no, we'll make it work. Maybe is it that Midwestern thing of like, we'll figure it out.
And
it'll be okay. Where you're trying to please the client.
Yeah.
But also like, because you don't want to just say no to the client, but there is a point where you have to be like, look, that's not what we agreed to. We're not doing that.
Rob, I've been sent to go teach a group of adults, and then I get there and the kids are 1 year old to 9 years old, and it's like
no,
I still did it and I made it work. It's like I was told I was going to go teach like adults at like a business sort of thing, right?
So this is similar. I used to work.
I was like, this is just slowly us bitching.
That's what the people want.
They want to hear us bitch, or just that's what we want to do.
I still kind of work for a ping pong bar.
Yes.
And like I would sign up for gigs. It's much like a hosting gig. You just kind of be like, great, here are the games. I'm going to referee these things, blah, blah, blah. In the early days of it, I signed up for it was like a Sunday afternoon. It was labeled as like a church group. I was like, all right, screw it. I'll go down. And then I showed up. And now again, it's a ping pong bar. I show up and they're kids. It's a group of like 20 kids. And they're young. I'd say 10 and younger.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I tried. It was a very long 2 hours, but I tried. But when we're done, I emailed a few people and I was like, hey, you have to let the people know of his children. You have to let us know of its
critical information.
That is critical because there are people who don't want to do that. Like me. I don't want to do that.
You don't want to work with kids in general?
No. I don't want to. I don't mind kids. Like if it's a play and there's a child actor, I'll work with them. But I don't want to be the wrangler. Does that make sense? Yeah. I don't want to.
You don't want to go. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. I don't want to do that.
I can manage.
Yeah,
that's like I teach kids classes and adult classes.
Yeah.
I can manage. I think I prefer high school and up.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm not. Kids are great.
Kids are great.
And like
but they're a different dynamic in a big group.
Hands down. I'll come do storytelling stuff. Super fun. But yeah, if I have to lead them, I don't want to do that. I'd be an awful camp counselor for anything younger than a teenager. I don't want any of that.
Here's the thing: you'd hate it, but the kids would love you.
I'm sure they would.
They would. You're like, get the fuck off me! They're like, yay!
He got him to swear.
Yeah, they would love you.
Well, what else?
What else?
This is fun.
I'm excited to join you and Dugan.
That'd be fun.
And come on your podcast.
That'd be a hoot.
We'll just recycle everything we talked about and just try to get Dugan on board.
He'll be on board.
Yeah.
Jonny, let's talk about you for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Because I do miss playing with you because you were always a goddamn delight.
Oh, well, thank you.
I missed
Likewise.
Thank you. I missed during our June Boy days.
Which was a team we performed on IO for a good 3 years. 3.5?
4? I want to say 4. We were there for a bit.
That's like a whole high school experience.
I know.
4 years.
We graduated.
Freshman, sophomore.
Freshman, junior, senior. But we used to do church ladies constantly at a bake sale, and I miss those scenes.
Well.
Oh, Patrice, good to see you.
Good to see you, Vivian.
You brought the lemon bars again?
What I didn't eat on the way here.
Oh, they're going to sell fine. I miss doing that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like IO has,
oh boy.
Is that me? Chicken's done.
That's me, guys. My phones are ringing.
Uh-oh. Phones are ringing. Better go.
A singing.
The singing. What was I going to say?
We were talking about missing performing together.
I do. That's it. I just miss performing with you.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. And I get comedy sports, you got to step away. I understand that. And I get it. And like my time at IO ended abruptly, but what are you going to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to open another can of worms.
Open it up. Let's talk.
It's a can of worms you might not like as much, but I'm just curious.
Sure, let's talk.
So if you perform at a theater like IO, there is people making decisions about when teams come and go, when performers come and go.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you volunteered, not paid, volunteered to be a part of what was called the Herald Commission.
This is true, yes.
Where you start making decisions about which teams stay, which teams don't stay, which performers go. And I have to imagine that that's a real shitty position to be in.
It hands down is. I've said this a few times. I think the Herald Commission ruined my time at IO for me.
Hindsight, you wouldn't have done it?
Yeah. And like when I agree, yeah, I think so. Because I think I would have had more fun my last few years there. And maybe when I was cut, it wouldn't have stung as much. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. When I joined, I wasn't, it just kind of came out of the blue. And I was really kind of hemming and hawing about it. And it literally was like, well, why not? See how this goes. Excuse me.
Nice. That smelled like Jelly Belly cherry water.
Very cherry.
He just burped.
Listeners, I can't stop burping. I've been burping and peeing this whole time. I can't. My I just lost all function. Everything from the neck down is it's nonsense. It's horrible. Don't look at the carpet. Yeah, the Herald Commission is tough. And it's also when I joined it went through a huge transformation as well. Because when I joined, it was surprise, mostly men. We met every once in a while. So like maybe once every 3 months, we would meet at 10 p.m. and the meetings were horrible because we wouldn't meet on a regular basis. So we had to cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Had to like figure out all these teams and coaching and all this stuff. And then someone who was in charge quit. I don't know if I should name names.
Okay.
I won't.
Keep ambiguous.
Yeah. Someone who was in charge quit. We had a few other people. And then Becca Barish and Molly Jones kind of took over, and it made into a better, more organized thing.
Okay.
And I think it was helpful. But by the time it was kind of running a bit more smoothly, I felt I didn't really belong on it anymore. And that's when I stepped away. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody. Right. I was just like, oh, this is becoming something different than when I joined, and I don't think they need me. They don't need my opinion, my thought. They don't need that. So I'll just step away.
It's I have to imagine.
It's hard.
I have to imagine that you're in such a hard position, like
because you know these people.
You know these people as your friends.
Yeah.
You're making decisions about who can perform and who you perform with.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a microcosm of probably what it's like to own a theater.
Oh, it's gotta be. Yeah. I can't.
It's got to be awful.
It's got to be.
Like theaters can definitely should be held to task and do things better, and have room for improvement. But no matter what you're doing, there's going to be a lot of people who are very upset just by the nature of being cut and not making a team
any position of power anywhere. No matter what you do, people are going to be upset by it. Even if you're trying your hardest to be like, I think this is the right thing to do, we're going to do this. People are going to be mad at it. And I think what a lot of people, anyone should try to be in a power position. It's hard.
Give you a little perspective. Yeah.
It's hard.
Even as someone who auditions, getting the chance to be an auditor and make decisions, it's like,
it's
man.
Helpful. Yeah.
It's all helpful to see the other side of the table.
It's tough because also I would swing for people. I'd be like this. I like this. I like person X. We should really go for person X.
Yeah.
And then the person to my immediate left would be like, well, I don't know who that is. And then the person to my immediate right would be like, I don't like them. How does anything decide?
Yeah.
Because that's also the trouble. The more people on a commission, the harder it is to get to a finite answer.
Yeah. It's weird, because the whole we've hit on this, I guess, at a number of different angles today, but you think of comedy being so lighthearted and fun and free, and that's what you see on stage.
Yeah, which it should be.
Yeah, but you don't always get to. Not everyone else gets to see the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Right?
It's hard.
I tell that to students who are. I did this again. I have sunscreen on my face, and I rubbed it into my eye, and now my eye is dripping.
You want me to spit on it?
Please. I have a drippy eye. I keep doing this all the
I
time.
hate when I have like a little. You think you get all that sleepy crust out of your eye?
Oh, I just leave it in.
And you do.
I leave it in. I always tell students who are like taking classes, I'm like, especially like kids, I'm like, man, you don't see both sides of the coin. That like you got to be able to be silly and have fun, but you also have to be professional. Like, that's a hard thing to learn for people.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to kind of also realize that, man, there's like decisions in the comedy world that are hard for people to make and hard for your colleagues to make and hard for producers to make. And it's like, we all got to be cool though.
The commission only started because like Sharna could only watch so many teams, and the bigger IO got, the less she could like really keep a hold of everything. Yeah. Because like, say what you want about Sharna, she's just getting older. And like it got bigger and she's bad. Like I understand I'm horrible with names and faces. I feel bad constantly. But like it's got to be harder for her. Like things are growing, more teams, especially back in the day when like teams were cut within like 6 weeks.
And the turnover of how many new faces there are. Yeah. It's a big job.
It is.
It's a big job.
So I get the Herald Commission was a needed thing. If you served on it, God bless you. It was tough.
Probably a very thankless job too.
Oh, hands down.
Right? Because you are making those hard decisions. Mm-hmm. People either get nervous about you being able to make a decision over them, or they're potentially upset about a decision.
Do you remember for a period the commission you couldn't know who was on it? And then like
I didn't know that was a strategic choice. I just figured I didn't. It was just on the DL.
To me, it was a strategic.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say. A strategic choice. A strategic choice.
Who's that person in the back watching my show?
What's going on there? Oh, they're hooded. But then when I like halfway through when I was on, they're like, "We're going to tell everyone who's on it," and I was like, "Oh, I don't like that.
I'm out.
I don't like that at all." Because like then people also in the community view you in a different way.
Yeah.
And if you show up to a show, maybe it makes them more nervous, or maybe it gives them the attitude of like, fuck them. It's like, it sucks. I mean, watch your dumb Herald.
Yeah. It's real dumb.
Yeah. Do a sweep at it better. Speaking of Herald, can we talk about your class that I helped you with the other day?
Oh, yeah.
That went better than I had expected.
So I've done this twice now.
Okay. Those kids
for
are
listeners, I've been teaching some online classes for kids. And this was the second time I had Chicago improvisers, and actually people from other parts of the world too, come and as more experienced performers come and perform with them.
Yeah.
And these kids are just like, it's cool to watch that mix, because I think I've done it twice now, and both times it worked out. And I think it's cool for the kids because they get a chance to, perform with people who've been doing it for a while.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think it's cool for the adults too, because it's like, I get to like, this is novel. Like, I'm watching these children improvise, and like, in their point of view is probably not one that you're used to, and you might be surprised by like how well they can hold down a scene and all that stuff. And so I think it's been a real fun dynamic. I've done it 2 times, and I want to continue having guest performers come in and perform.
I had a blast. Those kids were great. And it was like a different mindset of like, all right, not only are we on Zoom, which is
weird in and of itself,
an odd place to perform, but we have to like do kind of a long form thing. And it's like, okay, great. We have our 3 rules to get us through it. And I'm just going to, my objective was like, I'm going to try to set up scenes where I can call people in. So like, it's not just like me and Jake Bradley doing stuff. Like the kids can come play too. Yeah. But yeah, it was fun. I had a good time.
These kids have such a different perspective too, because like they're not seeing improv shows.
Yeah.
And they're not, and like I'm specifically teaching children who've been doing, improv and sketch comedy for some of them like multiple years, 4 or 5 years.
Isn't that crazy?
Some only a couple.
Yeah.
But most of them have never even seen a long form show.
That's wild.
And in this weird vacuum of online, I'm like, okay, let me try to explain to you this abstract thing that's even hard to grasp when you can watch it.
Okay, listen.
But they are getting it.
They're getting it. Yeah,
they're getting it, and they're long form improv, the caveat of the game or what's funny about it isn't spelled out for you like in short form.
No, yeah.
Short form, like there's a hoop you have to jump through, some hard game, and that in and of itself is one of the aspects that makes it funny, right?
Yes, yeah.
And when you're just doing long form, you have to find what's fun about the scene every time. Yeah. And so that these kids are so fun and brilliant, and they find the fun thing.
Yeah.
And they feel when it goes bad, and it's been really exciting because this is my first time teaching kids like that are in junior high long form improv.
Yeah.
And watching them like it and like kind of like be asking the right questions and being boggled by the right things, like trying to even explain like when you're calling back a scene that we've already seen before. Not only are you potentially calling a character back, you might be calling back a theme, a concept, a world move.
That's great.
And they're like, what? But then like them slowly grasping that, and like also some of these kids come in just so inherently funny. It's like,
oh, sure.
They're like just as funny as some adults are.
Do you remember when I saw you at Second City and I didn't realize like a parent was yelling at you?
Oh, yes. I do remember that. Oh, yes.
I don't even remember what I did. I think I was walking out of some theater and you were talking, and I just thought you were having a nice conversation.
I got bum rushed by a mom.
And
here's the thing, when you teach children, you're not just dealing with the children.
Oh, yeah.
You're dealing with the parents.
Stage parents. Stage parents.
Yes.
When you told me eventually what happened, I was like, oh, no. Because I don't remember. I came in and said something. I just did a quick bit and kept walking. Having no idea.
I was just figuring out too that I was being attacked. It was like she came like rushing up to me after the show. A parent didn't like how one singular improv show went for their kid.
Yeah.
And we know in the world of theater, there's like a correct way to be like, oh, they're going to learn from that or whatever. Yeah. But like, it was like life or death for her. I was like, I'm sorry, your child didn't exceed your expectations.
And here I come in. Hey, Johnny.
Yeah. But it's it's weird.
Oh,
most parents that of the children I teach are awesome. And
sure.
They're very sweet.
Oh yeah, of course.
But you stepped into like a very peculiar.
When you told me that, I was like, oh no, because I was like worried. I'm like, oh God, am I going to get Johnny in trouble? More so because this moron walked by.
No. No. The people I work for have my back and are lovely. And like when a parent is out of control, like we're usually all like, yeah, we got an out of control parent here. We got an out of control parent. We know what's going on.
Hit the siren. We got one.
Yeah.
Bunker down.
Rob Grabowski.
Johnny, are we done?
Let's turn it off and keep talking and see what we wanted to actually say, and nobody else will actually know.
What did you want to talk about? Your mouse story? We don't have to.
We don't have to.
No, we won't. That's a spoiler.
Yeah. We'll save it for your podcast. Thank you so much, Rob, for doing this.
Thanks for doing this, buddy.
It was good to kind of reconnect after not seeing each other for a while.
It's been nice. Always a pleasure, buddy. Happily, we can do this without mics if you want to.
For sure.
Yeah. Friends? Friends. All
right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Dance to the middle of the night. Come on, dance appetite. Dance to the middle of the night. Come on, dance, wake up the appetite. Dance to the middle of the night. Come on, dance, wake up the appetite. Dance to the middle of the night. Come on, dance, wake up the appetite. Dance to the middle of the night. Yeah.